Alright, before we begin here, I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the noise that's behind me. I just got a 3D printer that's running, and I can't really angle my mic anywhere away from it, unfortunately. So, what we're going to be doing in this video, as well as probably, I think this is going to be a little mini-series that's going to run about 3 videos, is we're going to be modeling and texturing a knife using Blender and Substance Painter. Now, we're going to achieve roughly a result similar to this, that we can simply kind of toggle between different things. So for example, for the handle, just have 2 separate layers here that will really alter the style, and same thing for the decoration. So we can have gold, silver, etc. You can easily change the dirt for each mask and that kind of thing, or keep them the same like I did on the decor, and differently, just like how I did for the knife or the handle. Now, I'm not very experienced with Substance Painter, so you're gonna have to kind of bear with me a bit. But this is a general tutorial, and this is pretty much what I'm gonna be using in the Nazi Zombie series once I actually finish it. But I figured I'd go ahead and remake it and just kind of show you the steps I take along it. So pretty much just building an object or a knife from scratch. So starting up with Blender, we have a basic project. Go ahead and just press A, X, delete everything. Then for me, I'm going to go ahead and change the units. Under here, this is the scene properties. Go to units, unit scale to 0.01. And then press N to bring up the side tab. Go to view. Under end, set it from 10 to 50 meters, just so our visibility really extends. Then we have our default collection here. I'm just going to double click and rename it to knife parts. And now we can begin. So what I'm referencing is the knife from World War. Unfortunately, it's very low quality, but I'm pretty much going to be remaking this, but keeping a similar shape. So, because this is a bayonet, it's not the actual knife that they have in hand. So we're going to be, for the most part, giving it a similar shape to kind of have like a in-between, if that makes sense. So to begin, what I'm going to start by making is the actual kind of like the safety portion that blocks your hand from the blade. And that's going to be used to really build upon. So I'm going to press Shift A, go to Mesh, and I'm going to add a cylinder. Now I'm going to go down here to this little property guy here, change the vertices to go up to like 48, increase it a little bit, press 3 on the number pad to go into side view, press G, then Z to move it up and down on the Z axis, and hold down left control to enable snapping. So I'm going to drag it up to the center. I'm going to go ahead and, well, if you don't have that quickly bound, you can press F3, type in set origin to 3D cursor, and that'll bring the origin point down here to the center. Then we can press R to rotate, and again holding down left control, rotate it to the side like so. I'm going to press Control A and apply rotation. So that way it's all zeroed out. Next up, I'm just going to scale it down a good bit. I don't know what the actual scale is going to have to be. I'm going to just scale the entire thing, then we'll press S, then Y to scale it on the Y. And we'll go for basics of our thickness. I'm going to go with about here. I can actually even round that out to 0.03. And on the X, let's just do 0.2. And same thing on the Z, 0.2. So it's a perfect circle. Now I can press Control A and apply the scale, so it's zeroed out. Now what I want to do is I want to right click, Shade Smooth. Come down here to Object Data Properties, Normals, and check Auto Smooth. I'm going to change the angle to 45 because I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do the cuts. I'm going to press 1 on the number pad to go into front view, tab and go to edit mode, and I'm going to enable X-ray. So this comes about straight up. What we're going to do is select from here, just bring it straight up, and shortly after the bottom, going to do the same thing about here. Actually, instead, yeah, actually, I'm going to leave it the same. That's going to give us our general shape. But up at the top, as you can see, it kind of goes a good bit wider. What we can do is select this top half, bring it out on the X, and bring it up a little farther. So what I did to achieve that was simply press S, then X to scale it on the X, bring it out, then G and Z, bring it up. I got a little more, like so. Then I'm going to do the same thing for this guy. Get on the X, bring it more vertical for the edges there. And let's see. So this looks like it's rounded off. So what we would need to do, for example, to round that off, we're going to show you kind of what beveling's going to do. So beveling's not going to really do entirely what we want. Actually, yeah, for this area that actually works quite well. What we're going to do is we're going to select this edge and this edge, press Ctrl B to bevel, then scroll up to increase the amount of cuts. So I want to do about like that. Make it real smooth and taper down nicely. And then for up here, we're not going to do that, because it's, as you can see, it's going to kind of carve it all the way down. Instead, we're going to add new loop cuts. We're going to press Ctrl R right here and add a loop cut there. And right click to center. Same thing on the other side. Now we're going to select both by holding Shift and left clicking. I'm going to go into wireframe so I can see it. I'm going to press S, then X to scale it in. Then G and Z to bring it up a little bit. I'm going to go into vertex view so I can see the points. And we want it to be roughly in the middle of the two. And from here we can Control B to bevel. Like so. Now I want to round these out by selecting, and same thing. So that way it is smooth. But I don't want the edge to connect there. Oh. Actually, I think I'm just going to bring it up. So, oops. I'm going to bring it up just a touch and scale it in a little bit where it looks like it working with it. I'm going to scale it out and get them about even. So now we have a pretty good looking piece here, and we can continue. So now I want to round out kind of this middle portion. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to Control R and go to the center and simply right click to put a loop cut in the center. Then I'm just going to simply press S and scale. Just drag it out to kind of scale it up to smooth it out. I think about like so. And then the only thing we really need to do is get rid of these points. So to do that, we're going to add a loop cut on the left and right side like so, and select them both. So we're going to hold Shift, Alt, and left click on the line to select it and scale. As you can see, that has rounded it out a good bit. Now we have a pretty smooth and round curve thingy. Now the only thing I don't like is how it's kind of sucked in the corners here on both sides. Everywhere else looks pretty good. I'm going to select here and here, here and here. Press G then Z to bring it up a touch, and then S and X to scale it in just a hair. And that kind of will smooth everything out along with the shading. Now that we have that, we can Alt left click to select that side, Shift Alt select for that side, and we can bevel a little bit. As you can see, that gives a shading issue. So that doesn't cause the issue for me. I want to do about there like so, and now it's completely rounded off. So that looks decent. Now I'm going to name that to, well, let's see, what would we call it? I guess safety. Okay, then I'm going to Shift A, add in another cylinder, do the same exact thing. Oops. Rotate it, and apply the rotation to just bring kind of everything to the center. Actually, I rotated that the wrong direction. And apply the rotation that way. We're doing the same thing, just the opposite for the rotation. And we scale it in roughly the width of this guy. So we can scale it up and have it pretty much match, like so. Fade smooth, apply auto smooth, and 45 degrees. So the only thing I want to do here is change the safety up. I'm going to wireframe just so I can select this entire top half. I want you to press S, then X to scale it in. I'm going to create another loop cut on both sides, like so, and scale those in on the X. Or, I didn't mean to do those there, actually. Yeah. I'm going to press G and Z. Bring them down a bit. Back into wireframe. Press S then X to scale them out. Same thing again with more loop cuts. S then X to bring it in, so it's kind of a just kind of makes everything not nearly as blocky. Let's select the entire top half. Actually, do I want to do... I'll just bring it up just a little bit. Reselect both sides. Actually add another loop cut in between those two. We'll do the same thing again. Well, we're going to select the ones right above that, sorry. Then S then X again. And bring it in. We're going to have it just where it kind of looks kind of nice. So I'm going to select these guys. Bring them in a little bit. Then the ones right above it. Bring in just a hair. And I think that ultimately makes the shape a good bit better. Now we're going to work on the handle. So let's press S then Y to extend it out on the Y axis. And we'll go about here. I'm just going to round it, so 0.2, 0.7, 0.2. Control A, scale. Let's go into edit mode and add some loop cuts. So Control R for the center, left click then right click to bring it to the center. Same thing between that, like so. Shift Alt left click to select the new loop cuts we just made, and press S to scale it up. Okay. Now do the same thing, just Alt left click for the one in the center and scale it up a little further so it smooths it out. And it's like one continuous transition. Then we want to take this back side, Alt left click, extrude it out. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this little guy here to toggle the X-ray so we can select all the way through like so. I'm going to do one underneath of the Z, axis line, so we're at the dead center. Bring it down, do it again. Same thing, bring it down. Bring it down a little farther. Do it again. Same thing. Do it again. And start rounding it off a little bit. And then extrude one more time, about double the length of these two. I want to actually bring this out a little bit. We're going to Control B to bevel. I'm not a huge fan of that, so I'm going to bring it out further. And press Control B just to bevel. And this is what we are met with. So that's our handle. I'm going to name it the handle. I go back into edit mode and I'm going to smooth this out. So I'm going to put a loop cut here and a loop cut here. Select it, scale up just a little bit. Like so. I'm going to select this guy and this guy, press S, then Y to scale it on the Y, just to drag them out a little farther. Then press S to bring it, scale it down just a little bit. I'll do the same thing here, S then Y, drag it out. Then scale down just a touch. Let's scale it up a little more. And that has a good round shape to it. So now we can press A, S, then X. And that'll bring it in a good bit. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to select this guy and this guy. Press, go back in edit mode, select all, S, then X. And just make it skinnier. And there we go. We have our, pretty much our basic shape. And I'm quite frankly happy with it. How long has this been? Okay, 17 minutes. We will get started on the blade. I have to leave here shortly, so I won't be able to finish it in this video. So anyways, let's go ahead and create a new mesh. We're going to add a cube. Same exact thing as always. Oops. Rotate it this direction and set your origin. So as usual, just set origin to 3D cursor. Same thing. Move it on the y-axis. Let's scale it down a good bit. We're going to click this guy and set it to base. Now we'll press G then Y, so we move it this way, and then hold left control with our mouse right here on this face, and hold left control, and left click, and now it's snapped to the face. Okay, sorry I got interrupted. So now we need to see roughly how the height we want the knife. So it's about the height of the handle. We press S then C to scale it how we want. I'm thinking about here. Just a little, not as tall as the knife. Then we press S then X to scale it in. We press SY to scale it out. So now we can have a rough idea of scale. And I think that's pretty good thickness wise. As for length, let's make it a little longer. And I'll start with that because we're going to have a point that's going to extend farther. So now that we have our setup here, I can press Control A, set the scale, Control A, set the rotation, and Control A, set the, we don't need to worry about the location actually. So now we have it in place. Now we go to edit mode. We can start with the shape. So we just pretty much need a point going straight out. So I'm going to create a loop cut going this way, not vertical. I'm going to go into X-ray. And then vertex select by the way. Press G then Y to bring it out to make a point. Like so. And that's not bad, but we need to smooth it. As well, let's create smooth like we did before and figure out the how we kind of want to go about doing this. So for the point, with both points selected, and press S then X to bring it in. Then we need to think where we want it to taper. So for the bottom here, I'm going to create a... We'll go to create one going. And I guess not. So I'm just going to create a loop cut. Wait, I'm being stupid. So there's already a line there. I was thinking that was the y-axis. I'm going to select... Let's see. Create a loop cut back. Bring it back about here. I'm going to go up here and change it to vertex for the snap to. I'm going to select this middle point here. Press G then Y. And then left control on this vertex here to make it completely vertical. So the reason I'm doing that is I want to select this vertice and this vertice. Press S then X. Bring them a little closer together, like so. That way it kind of tapers down, and then we're going to make another loop cut, running all the way across the center, like that. I'm going to select the first point, G then Y, and bring it forwards, like so. Or better yet, let's actually select everything like we had before, deselect this one, as well as deselect those guys. Deselect. Actually, let's just hide the hand on the safety. And deselect. And deselect those. So it's just these three. Or these two. We're going to press S to scale them up. Let's select just this vertice. G, Z. Hold down left control to snap it to the head of those. So it's going straight out. This has started to form our shape for the bottom there. But I'm not too happy with how that actually turned out, so instead I want to go back to what I was doing. Select this guy, GY, bring out the point. Select this guy, GZ, drag it straight down. Add a loop cut about here. I'm going to do the same exact thing to make it straight, like we did before. Select this vertice here, GZ, and snap it to the one we just dropped. So it has that edge to it. A little easier to see in the flat shading. Now I just want to make an edge here. So it's actually got a point. Let's see. I'm going to bring you, drag you, I think, up. Actually out, just straight this way. That gives it kind of a somewhat of a point to mimic sharpness. And then I want to taper these in. So SX to scale in. Same thing on the bottom, just a little more. And then all the way back here, same thing, but not nearly as much. I'm going to lower this guy. I'm just going to set it at 35. That way it kind of gives us a visible point. But I want it to also hide these angles here. I'm going to set it to 40. And select this guy. This guy. Drag it down a little more. Like so. With just this guy selected, I'm going to snap them to the same depth as that. And we have our cutting edge. Now I want to smooth this off. we're going to do to fix that, I'm just going to drag the line all the way up here, G then Y, so that way it's a straight line. Select those three, and these three, press S then Z, scale it in. We're going to create another cut, same thing, drag it all the way there, Y then Z, go about in the middle, S then Z to scale it in. I didn't think about that very well when I was doing it. I'm going to Control Z and go back. So I'm going to create another loop cut, but instead I'm going to drag it about actually where I wanted it. That was my fault. Then select these three, and these three. S then Z to bring it down. That kind of started around it. I want to add one more in the center. Select the three in the middle. S then Z, bring it up. And that rounds off that portion. And what we can do if we wanted to, Alt select this guy, G then Y. Same thing here, G then Y, right to about the middle. And it's got a much less aggressive taper, like so. So I'm going to just round it a little more. I'm going to select the front ones, SZ, like so. Now we have that rounded tapering. So, as of now, this is our knife. One thing I want to do is I want to actually lengthen this a little more. I'm going to select all the vertices in the front, G, Y, drag them out. And I am happy with that. So let's just make sure everything's zeroed out for the scale, which it is. And rename it to blade. So now we're gonna, in this video, set ourselves up for unwrapping, and in the next video, we will actually unwrap it. So I'm gonna press A to select all. Go right here to scene selection actually first, right click, new collection. Call this one knife. Now I'm gonna press A to select all, Shift D to duplicate, drag all those new ones down into the knife, and we're gonna simply hide knife parts. I'm gonna select the blade, the safety, and the handle, and press Control J to join it, and rename this to knife. Now we have a single object here called knife, and that's what we want. Honestly, that is a little thin up front, but it's not too big of a deal. You can always just thicken that if you wanted. So, anyways, here's our knife, and in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to go and unwrap it, so that way we can set ourselves up to texture and separate kind of everything how we want, along with creating the vertex paints for the color ID map. So, I will see you then.